We are going to see how to use a Redux Toolkit, so how to integrate Redux Toolkit to our application. So the reason I'm going to use Redux Toolkit is because first of all, it's modern and it's easier than just using a plain Redux, okay, for our application. So the setup is actually easier. And why actually Redux itself is because when we have to build bigger applications, most of the times we will need to pass the state to a third part, okay, state management tool. In this case, so we have a user state and articles that we want to manage. So we are going to pass it to Redux, all right? So that's why I'm going to use Redux Toolkit. Now to set up Redux Toolkit, so the first thing is to head over to the Redux page, and I mean the Redux Toolkit page, and click getting started, okay? So they have like a guide here to set up your state, and we are going to actually use Redux Toolkit, and the query, okay, is provided with Redux Toolkit. If you remember, like at one point I said that we want to use let's say Axios to make queries, right? Because we most of the time we will need to, for example, after making a query, we'll need like some kind of event listeners. Or for example, when we create a new article, we want to fetch again the database, fetch that new article, for example. So this is easier to do with, for example, a code tool like Redux Toolkit query. Okay. Now to get started, so we have here a quick start, right? And actually here, so it says what we need to have is to install Redux Toolkit and React Redux. So I'll just open here our app, okay, and just paste this. So we have Redux Toolkit and React Redux. From that point, what we need to have is, so here the store ready. So we need to have the store. So I'll use the JavaScript model. We are going to create, okay, so a file store.js, right, where we'll import this configure store, right? So in my here in my src folder, so I'm going to create a new file, right, and call it store.js, and this store.js is just going to have this, okay. Let's just copy it. All right, so now here we have a configure store which is coming from Redux Toolkit. So this configure store is helping us create our store. So the store is where we'll have the user state and the article state. So we need to have this store, and from that point, so we'll have to build our reducers here. So we need to have slices, okay, for one slice for the user and one slice for articles. So I'll create a new folder in my src still, so call it features, and in it I'll have a user slice, so that.js, and another one, so I'll call it blog post slice. Let's just call it post with s slice .js. So the user slice, we can look at the example here, right? So this is the example for a slice, so it's called counter slice, but we don't need to have counter slice. So it creates the slice first, right, and it has an initial state. It can be anything. For example, the user doesn't need to have a value of 0, so it can be just an object. Yeah, and then here you call the create slice with the name and initial state and some reducers here. So that's how we do it. Okay, now for the create slice, we can just call here import. So we can import from Redux Toolkit, and it's actually going to be create slice, okay, and we need to have an initial state. So let me just copy this. Actually, this is better. The initial state is going to be just an empty object for the user. So we will call it user. So the initial state here is an empty object, and the reducer, so we don't need the reducer, so I'll just going to remove them, okay, from now. And let's remove this. Okay, so that's it for the user. So the same for, let's call this actually user slice. So user slice. So let's do the same but for the post. So I'll paste it here and call it post slice. So say here post slice. The initial state though will be here an empty array, okay, and we'll name it post. So we have our two slices ready, and we can integrate them here in our reducer by just saying user. Okay, it's going to be user slice, and post are going to be post slice. Alright, and we don't need actually this reducer here. Okay, actually we need it. I think we need it. Let's see the example. Yeah, we need them. So back to here, we'll say reducer. For the user we need this one, and for the post we need the other one. So this is our store. Now we can export default store. Okay, so this is so this is the store, and back to our index.js. So here we are going to import so this, if you see here, we need a provider, right, and a store. So the provider is coming from React Redux, so I can say here import. So import from React Redux, and we need to import our provider. Okay, and we need to import our store. So store from the store, and this provider is going to wrap, so it's going to provide the store to my app. So it's like provider, and it's going to wrap the app component, and we can have a store. So it takes a store, and this is going to be our store. Okay, let's see if it's exporting it correctly. All right, so let's see now what we have. So to have access to your Redux Redux store, it says create slice is not defined in our post slice. So let's see post slice, it's our slice, post slice. Create slice should come from Redux Toolkit. So I was saying, if you want to have access to your Redux store, all you need to do is to install. So do you have Redux here? You can just say Redux DevTools. Okay, so this we are going to install it. Oh, I see. So actually I need to change my browser. Close the guest 3000, and you need to have Redux DevTools installed. So I can just look at here Redux DevTools to bottom. Oh no, it doesn't open. Just inspect. Okay, and then it's going to give you this Redux where you can have access to your state. So as you can see, we have our user, okay, and the post. with the initial state, which is fine. So what we need to do here, what we want to do here is to check if now once we log into our account, we want to store the user right in this user slice. Okay, so how we are going to do this? So we are going to use Redux Toolkit for that, and we are going to use as well Redux Toolkit query, RTK query. So let's say here Redux Toolkit. So we have the Redux Toolkit query, which can integrate itself with our Redux store. So all you need to do is to create a new file where we will have our RTK setup. Okay, so here we can create a new file. So it's going to be just here, and we call it app API. Okay, this is going to be our API, where we are going to make like everything about the, querying data, fetching data, posting, making post requests. So all this is going to be managed by this one file. All right. So now we can go back here. Okay, where we are going to create our API. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, and let's look at examples. So where do you find this? Okay, 1 second, guys. I'll have to look at something here. Okay, so this app API is like a service, so we need to create a file. For example, here, as you can see, so they have this fetch base query, okay, and the create API. So the fetch base query is what's going to create our base query. So the base query is, for example, for us, it's going to be localhost 5000, and we'll have endpoints inside. Okay, so that's how we do it. Now back to our app. Let's create here actually a services, and inside the services we will have our app API. So let's move it there. Okay, so let's add the fetch base query. Okay, and then let's export. So const our app API equals the result of creating our API. Okay, and this is going to take, right, so we have here the reducer path, okay, the base query. So the reducer path is just the path of like the name of your API. So we can just have the same name, so like app API. You have the base query, okay, and then the endpoints. So let's say here we'll have a reducer path. It's going to be app API. You have the base query, right? But this base query, it's going to be the fetch base query, okay, and we have the base URL. That's going to be HTTP, okay, localhost 5000. All right, so this is our base URL. So we can add what we call tag types, but from now let's just leave it like that. Now below, okay, below this fetch base query we'll have our endpoints. So let's add it. So we have endpoints. Okay, it takes a builder to build our endpoints. Actually, like this function. So this in this builder, so we can have as many queries as we want. For example, here in the on the website, so you have this get Pokemon by name. Okay, so this is a query to get a Pokemon by name. Right. So now let's create one. So the first one we can say one that's called show. So let's say here login user. Okay, so the login user is going to be a builder that mutation, because a mutation, so you have a query and a mutation. A query is when you want to just get the data, like read from the database. But when you want to do a mutation, so a post a request or any like a patch request or a delete request, so we call it a mutation. So we are going to do a mutation. Okay, and this mutation is going to take a query. So the query is going to be taking a user, right? Because this is going to be like a username and a password. Okay, so for the user, and let's make it like this actually. So the URL for this login user is going to be /users sync / login, right? And as well we have a method, so the method post method, and we'll have the body. This is like what you are sending to the database. So this is replacing actually Axios, okay, but it's doing it like in a different way, okay, because we are using queries and mutations, and the advantage is every time like it has event listeners. So when we make a mutation, we can refresh from the database without any other let's say without additional code. We are just going to use what we call tags. I'll explain it to you, and these tags are going to be like our event listeners. So the login user, okay, is done. We have as well sign up user, which is a builder that mutation. So this sign up user is going to take a query. So we can just copy this actually. It takes a query which is a user and the URL. In this case we can remove this login, and a method called post method. Okay, so we have now the login user and we have the sign up user. So these are from now our API endpoints. Okay, so let's export default our app API, and we are going to export at the same time const. Okay, so from equals app API. So the app API, every time you create a new endpoint, in this case is going to give you let's say a hook, okay, to call that function. So here it's called use. I should do this for us. So use login. So use login user mutation. I don't know why it doesn't do it for us. Const app API. So we create the API. Okay, with a base URL. Okay. So let's see. So it's like this, and these are our endpoints. Okay, so add here use sign up user mutation, and these mutations, so these are hooks that give us access to these functions. Now how to set up this in our store. So back to our store, right? So they have now this way of doing it. So you have we need to add this generated reducer. Okay, and we need to add this middleware. So let's first import our app API in our store. So import app API, okay, and in our store, so in the reducer we can add this. I'm just going to copy it, and we say here app API, okay, and we say app API dot reducer. Now we need to add a middleware, so below it, okay, but still in the configure store. Let's just put it here below the reducer, so the middleware, and it's going to be app API that middleware. Okay, so the store is ready now with the RTK query. Now here is an example where like we are going to use our hooks, okay, and these hooks are going to give us access to a bunch of state. For example, is loading, error, data, okay, so these are going to be generated from this query. For example, if it's fetching, so you have access to is loading, okay, the data, if there is an error as well, you can know it. So it's pretty useful. So back to our login here, instead of calling this, right, so now what we can call here is the mutation. So use sign up user mutation coming from this API. So what we are going to do is, so let's look at this example here. Let's see, look at the mutations. Okay, they'll have an example. Yeah, so here so not actually this one. Yeah, so this is the mutation. So the mutation is different from the query. The mutation gives us first of all the function, okay, and the states here, and it's a hook. So we can just say, so here const equals use sign up user mutation. It gives us the first item is going to be the sign up user function. So I can say sign up user, and the second one is I don't know, so use sign up mutation. It's kind of not working. I don't know why it doesn't work, but it should be like it's loading, right? So let's say here is loading, and once we get the sign up user mutation, we have the sign up user, so we can just call it sign up user with email and password. So let's see what we have. Okay, so let's go to the login page, and there is actually an error here. Yeah, it says it's not a function. Right, so let's see why. The reason, it's probably in the app API. Okay, let me just try it with this one first, the example. So quick start. So let's see, where is the RTK query? Let's copy this, okay, just to see what we'll have. I think it's better like that. So here we have a Pokemon API. Let's say app API, and change this to localhost 5000. Okay, and we have the endpoint. So let's say here sign up user builder.query. Okay, so here mutation, and the query is going to be, so it takes a user and should be a function now as before. So URL users, and we can have a method, a post method, and the body is going to be the user. Let's see if you have it now. Use, yeah, I don't know why it didn't work the last time, but you can replace what you had. So with just by pasting, we probably made us some typos. So just replace this, okay, and now from that point we will just use it. So now instead of being Pokemon API, we say app API. So app API, and we need to say export default here, app API, and this should be auto generated. So which means when I type use, why it doesn't work again, maybe this is the case. So use, okay, there is something wrong with the name. It says Pokemon API. So it says you sign up user with this Pokemon API. Let's say here export const. If we say app, let's say block API, because it shouldn't be an issue with the name. So block API, and let's see if it's going to work. If I try again, yeah, it doesn't, it works. If I try app API, it should work as well with app API, I think. So app API use, okay, and let's say here export default app API. Let's try again. Okay, it works. So let's now see if the sign up is working, and now it works. Okay, so we can now try, right, to actually sign up with that mutation. So in the sign up, we import, okay, this we import, do you have it? We don't have it here. Yeah, so actually should not be in the login, should be in the sign up. Let's remove it. So this is the tricky part, guys, so just stick to it. So here const equals use sign up user mutation, and you will have here the function, so sign up user, and should give us, yeah, so now it's working. So it should give us this these attributes like is error, is loading, is success. So this is going to this is giving us info about our let's say our fetching state. So if we are fetching, okay, it says if we are fetching, say is loading, if there is a success, it says is success, or isn't. If there is an error, it says is error. Or if there is a data, so it says data, for example, like this. So I need to have is loading and the data like this, right? So here I can call now, instead of using Axios, I just can call, you see, sign up user. So it's that easy. Email and password. Okay, now if there is a data, so we can say if data console log data. Right, so if there is a data here coming from the sign up user, we can just log it to the console. So now let's inspect that. Just to show you. So let's try with user 10 at example.com. Just give it some password. It should be the sign up. So user 10 example.com. So just give it a password. It says connection diffused. Let's see if our backend is running. So it doesn't run, so we can run it. Make sure that it's connected. Okay, so it's connected to the DB. Now we can try it. And now you see we get the data. So the same data as before, but we are using here. So Redux Toolkit. Okay. Now once we get the data, what we want to do is to store it, right? So we want to store it in our state, because from now the Redux state is empty. Let's look at the state. So you see it's empty, right? But we have this app API, of course, so in our state now. So this user needs to be filled, okay, with this information once we log in. So how we are going to do this, we will actually go to our, I think it's our user slice. So that's where we'll have it. So user slice, it's in features, user slice. Okay. Instead of having reducers, we'll have extra reducers. So here I'm going to add extra reducers, and these are going to be like event listeners. So it takes builder. Okay, so it's coming from the hooks. I mean, not the hooks, but the Redux Toolkit query. So we'll listen for events, right? So we'll add a matcher. So the match is going to be the app API we did. Okay, we built that endpoints. So when we sign up the user, okay, what we want to do, so once it's fulfilled, which means once we get the data back, so what do we want to do here? So we'll have the state, okay, and we'll have access as well to the payload. Make sure it's within curly braces, and we will do state now that user equals our user. Okay, so that's what we need to do. So let's see. I can say state that user should be payload actually that user. So let's see now. If I create a new account, so let's say user 9 at example.com. So password. So we have the user, and let's look at the state, the Redux state, and we should see that the user, it doesn't. There is an error, or we didn't save. Okay. So once we sign up the user, let's see here, console log, okay, state, and user sign up. To make sure that the event is actually running, so user 8, so at example.com, and just grab some password here. So you have the user sign up, which means it's listening to the event, but the Redux state so is not updating. Okay. So we say state.user. Let's look at the state here. let's just return, instead of saying this, say return payload.user, just to see what we'll have. So abc at example.com, let's say password Redux state. Okay, so something is wrong with our state. Okay, but from now, okay, it's reacting to the state. We can just build another one. So another one for our extra reducers. Okay, so builder, it's the first one, and let's say the second one should be builder add matcher app API that endpoints. So we can say we don't have a login user, so let's add it here. So as I said, guys, this is the trickiest part of the whole project. So probably we'll have to deal with more challenges. But yeah, so that's how it should be actually. So here we have a sign up user, right? Let's add here a login user. Should be builder that mutation, and we will have a query. Okay, it takes a user as before. We can just copy this query. Right now, instead of being user, so we say user/login. Okay, so to log in our user, so that's how we should do it, and add it here, login user that match fulfilled. So we'll grab our state and our payload. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so what we need to do is to say now the state that user as before, it should be payload that user. All right, so let's look at here the payload. Actually what we have, console log payload, to make sure that we are having some payload and just not something blank. So example.com. So we have the payload actually, which is the user, which is fine. Okay, now back to our app API. We need to add here use login user mutation. So to have access to the login, to the user login, right? Okay. So now we need to make sure that we are persisting the user in our database, and we do this using Redux persist. So here let's say npm I Redux persist. We need as well to have Redux thunk. So npm I Redux thunk. Okay, so that once we refresh the page, we are not going to use we won't lose our data, because with Redux, once you refresh your page, even though you save your state, so everything you will lose everything. We don't want that. Okay, we want to keep the state even when we refresh the page. So I'm going to have Redux thunk installed, which is fine. So in my store, So store.js here. I'm going to import, so import storage from Redux persist. This is the storage we need to have, and we need to import as well. So import from Redux. Actually, we need to have Redux as well. So npm I Redux, and we have here combine reducers from Redux. Okay, the next thing is we need to import thunk from Redux thunk. Okay, and need to import as well import from Redux persist. Redux persist, and it's going to be the persist reducer. So persist reducer. All right, so now we have this. We can now set up our store to be persisted. Okay, so let's create here const persist config equals, so we say key root and the storage. Okay, so this is coming from the persist config, and we don't want to, for example, persist our app API, so we say blacklist. So blacklist. Okay, we include our app API that reducer path like this. Now let's say here const persist that reducer is going to be the persist reducer. So the persist config is our reducers. So, and our reducers are going to be here. So const reducers equals combine reducers with the user. Now these are going to be now not like that anymore. Okay, so it's going to be different because these reducers will be here. So user, we say user slice as before, and we can say post as our post slice. Okay, and as well app API that reducer path equals app API that reducer. Now the configure store it takes the reducer, which is going to be now the combined reducers here. Okay, and the middleware now will be not this anymore, but the thunk and app API that middleware. Let's change this. All right, and yeah, so the here actually our configure store is not going to be, let's say, combined reducers here. It's going to be this persisted reducers. So let's place it here, and we say the reducer will be now persisted reducer. Right, so the whole goal of this is to be able to persist, so to once we refresh the page, so to still have a user state. Okay, now let's get back to the issue here is setting up our user. So we're updating the post. Let's see, let's try it with the login now instead of just, it says cannot access persist config. Persist config, yeah, we are using it, so it should be up here. So let's log in. say abc@email.com. So say password, login. The login is not working because there is no, the function is not there. So login. So here I'm going to call use, so import use login, a user mutation, and here const, right, as before, login user, and we'll have here the data coming from use login, no, not sign up, but use login user mutation. And we have, okay, back here is, say is loading, and we have the data. All right, and then we can say login user with email and password. And if data, what do? We say console log data. Okay, let's now test this. Okay, we don't have the prevent default, so e.prevent default ABC. Okay, so we have the user back. Let's see now if the Redux store still, the Redux store is still not. We have this payload. Okay, this is the issue we need to solve. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, please say return. Oh, so it should be return payload actually. Just payload. Payload. Okay, let's see. Because the payload is the user, right? So ABC password. And yeah, so actually it was that we were just it was undefined, but now we just say state.user equals payload, or we can just return the payload. So in this case, let me just return the payload. So actually we need to just say state.user because we'll need to add more, we'll need to add a token. Okay, so say state.user equals payload. Let's remove this console log. Alright, so now we are having this user state. Let's refresh. So login, and now we have this user. So actually let's just return okay, so it's fine. This is fine. So now we have this user state. If you refresh, okay, now if you have a user, we can just now build our navigation, right? So let's say here the navigation, which is components navigation. This we want to hide it if there is no user, and to check if there is a user, actually what we can do is we can use a selector hook. So coming from React, so say use selector, it should come from React Redux, I think. So React Redux import from React Redux and say use selector. yeah, use selector, and use selector can have access to our state. So we say user equals use selector, and it takes a function. So state, we want to access the state that user. So if there is a user, we want to hide. If there is no user, actually we want to hide it. If there is a user, we want to show it. So here I'll say user and like this. Okay, we show the nav drop down only if there is a user. So right now we don't have a user, so it doesn't show. But if you have, so this password, right now we have the user, so it shows. That's how we do it. And this title is going to be coming from user.email, right? Yeah. And what do we have for the drop down? So for the drop down we have new article, okay, and my article. So I'll say here the first one is new article, second one my articles. Let's remove this one, and this one is going to be logout. Okay, and we can have a class here, class name. So btn outline danger, right? So okay, it doesn't work. Let's see why. So put btn danger, class name. Let's put it here. So the nav drop down, we can add a link container, because no, we can just add a button, sync, just a button, and you can say logout. Let's remove this class, say class, so variant outline danger. See now, yeah, we have it, and this as well. So we'll use the link container, okay, to wrap this first one, and this is going to, okay, I don't need that. So it's going to go to a new page, right? So here we'll say go to /new article, and this as well. So we can say here, paste it here. Say my articles. So my articles, like this. All right. So ABC. We have new article in my article. So now let's find why it's not actually saving the user state. We have the store. Okay, so we have configure store, so reducers, user slice, post slice, API. Okay, we have the persist reducer, should be fine. This is the function that persists our reducer to our store, our state to our store, but persist config the reducers. Okay, why do you have export const twice? Say const store. Okay, so we have, okay, And let's look at now our index.js. Alright, so here actually here we need to add a let me show you here. Persisting our store. So Redux persist. So it's not showing you, it's not showing us here, at least I don't find it, but we need to have something, the persist gate here in our store. Okay, so I'm going to import still from Redux persist. So from Redux persist, and we'll just have the persist gate so that it can persist it to our store. Persist gate. So persist gate, say here, import, say from Redux persist. So integration and React. So this is the persist gate. Okay, and we need as well to have import persist store from Redux persist. It's going to be persist store. And now that we have the persist gate, so we'll have here wrap the app persist gate, and we'll put it here, and we'll have a loading state, so we'll say no, and we'll have now the persist store, which is going to be so our persist store coming from, so here actually the store, you can say const the persist store equals the result of calling the persist store function with our store, and now it needs to have this persist store. Now persist store. Right, so kind of tricky, I admit it. So setting up the Redux persist is the challenge for this project, but now let's see. Once we log in, it should now save the state. So abc@gmail.com. What's okay? Maybe it's the password. Should be example. Right, so now you have a user. Let's look at the Redux store. You have a user, and once we refresh the page, you see that okay, it doesn't disappear anymore unless we log out. All right, so that was it for setting up the, at least for the user, persisting the store. So now we can move on to just showing and hiding pages. For example, we should not allow the login page once we are connected. All right, so back to our app.js. Here we need conditionals now for these two. So like this, we'll use a selector. So we can say use selector here, and we say user, right? State.user. Like this, and don't forget to import use selector, just importing it from React Redux. So if there is a user, if there is no user actually, so no user, what do we do here? So we say this. Okay. However, if there is a user, what do we do? So we say user n. Okay. So we'll define a route. And we'll define a route here with some path equals, so the new article. Okay, and the element is going to be the new article. Okay, so I'm going to create here, so new, okay, article .js, so RFC for our new article, and let's just say new article here. Okay, so, and we will have as well edit article .js, so RFC, say edit article. Right, so we'll have here new article. Okay, a new route, it can be self-closing. Okay, but this is only for when we have a user. So let's look at as well here, edit article, so edit article, we will have here edit article. And actually this should be, so we need to have for the edit article, we need to edit by ID, right? So it's going to be, you can add here /articles, so /ID, and just edit like this. So it's more like descriptive. Okay, and the other routes, so we can have now a new route for when you want to show a new article, like when you want to read an article, yeah, or when you want to look at your own articles, for example. So for your own articles, we need to have a user, so route, so path equals, so let's say you can say articles and me, for example, and we'll say we want to show my articles component, and the component here, not the component, actually the page, you can say here my articles .js, so RFC. From now we can just say my articles. Okay, alright, so we have now my articles, edit article, and new article. These are going to be available, these are available only for the logged in user. Okay, so we can have as well as routes, so route path equals articles. So we want to show one article, you want to, when you want to read an article like this, we'll show the element, it's going to be, so in single article page. Okay, so let's build it, create it here. So single article page .js, so RFC, we say single article. Right, so we can have another one. Actually we don't need it, you can just have now a 404 page, right? So here we just use the wildcard character. So for any other route, we'll just consider that this route doesn't exist. So we'll say here not found. So let's create here the not found So RFC, we say page not found. Let's just say h1, say page not found, and we say, so class name is going to be text center. This is the page not found, and we want to show it here. So for every other character, for every other route, we will use the wildcard character and we'll say not found. Okay, so we have our routes now, and my articles, we need to create them. So single article page as well, let's just say this and this. So we need to import them. Alright, so it says page not found because the login page is only available if there is no user, so which is fine. If we say here something that doesn't exist, it should say page not found. Okay, let's go back to the home page, and now the next thing is to have, what do we need to have here? Yeah, so to have the article creation, basically creating new articles and showing them to the UI. So back to our backend. So let's create our new model. So here you can have it like blog post.js. This is going to be our blog post model. So what do we do here is mongoose equals, so we require mongoose. Alright, and here we need to have, so our schema, so const schema equals new mongoose dot schema. Okay, and we'll have a creator here. It's going to be our user, so type mongoose, so schema types, so object ID, right, and the reference is going to be our user. So that's how we do like the references. So the relationship between our schemas, right? So required, we say true. Each blog post needs to have a creator, basically. So let's just arrange it like this. So required true. We need to have a title. Okay, and the title is going to be of type string. Set string required, say true. It needs to have an image as well. Image type string, and required, let's say true. Okay, each image needs to have a, each blog post needs to have an image and a category like this. So type again string, and needs to have default value. Let's just make it others. So this could be like phone, okay, or anything, but just put it others if there is no category provided. Okay, and we need to have a created at for the date, so created at, and we'll have here type string. And now for the default is going to be a new date, so to locale date string, and we'll pass here so en us for the format and the date options. So the date options here, let's just create them here. So const date options, going to be an object where we'll have weekday, so long, year, numeric, months, so long, right? So it's going to be like when you say weekday long, it means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay, as long as a string, okay, because it could be like a number, but we don't want it as a number, we want it as a string, so a long string. The months as well, so long, like January, February, and the day, it can be numeric, right? So day, numeric, okay, so that we can have a nice date format. And that's it. Now we can say const blog post equals, so mongoose model, and say blog post and the schema. The schema can be just here, blog post schema, okay, we say here blog post schema post, so post like this, okay. Now we have our blog post schema. We can just export it by saying module.exports equals the blog post, and now we have our blog post. Now let's go back to the user, and here for the articles, so we need to have, as a blog post has a creator, a user can have multiple articles. So we'll say here articles, so the type is just mongoose, so schema types, right, object ID, and the reference is going to be the blog post, okay. Alright, so that's it. Now we can build our routes to create, first of all, let's go back to the user to create here, add the logout route. So user routes, we can just add here the logout route, so logout user, we say route, or we send the delete request, okay, logout, and here we need to check that the user is authorized, like the user is authenticated. And if you remember, so we build a middleware here, okay. So this middleware just checks if the authorization is sent from the front end, so include a bearer token, because every time we want to do like perform any task, we will send this from the front end. So let's just import it now. So const auth user require, right, you require it from middleware and auth user. So it should be auth, actually just auth. Says module not found, yeah, should be dash, okay, dot slash middleware slash auth. Now we'll put it as a middleware. So a middleware is a function that runs, okay, between two operations. So between the moment we want to log out and we want to async, like we want to send back a request like this, we want to provide our middleware in between. So here, so auth user, because before hitting this, okay, we first want to check if the user is authenticated before he logs out. So that's how we do it. Now if it logs out, if the user is authenticated, so let's look at the auth user, okay, if it finds the user, okay, with the token provided, it's going to append the user, it's going to attach the user to our request, okay, and the token as well to the request object. So we'll have it here, and we can just say try catch now. And what do we try here? We say request that user that tokens, okay? Because the tokens is an array of tokens, we want to remove the ones that sent, okay, from this for this logout. So we say now equals request that user that tokens. We filter out that one by saying token object. And what do you want to do? We want to return now a token object, that token, so it's not equal to the request that token. We just filtered out this one, so it's a way of removing that token sent from the database, I mean from the application, from the front end. Okay, and then we await now request that user now that save, okay, to save it, and we can say res that status 200 that sent. We send back that response. Otherwise we can just say res that status 400 that JSON, so with the error message, so e that message. Right, so that's the logout, the user logout. Okay, so we can go back to our app API and build that logout path now. Okay, so how do we do this? So app API, our services. So we'll have here logout user, which is a builder mutation, and the query is going to be now say here there is no user. Okay, there is no user, and what do we send here? So let's say URL. Now we need to wrap it in parentheses, so let me remove this. So URL is going to be /users/logout live, and the method is delete method. So let's make it uppercase. Okay, so that's the logout. Now we need a way of grabbing the token, because right now if you look at the state, inspect that. So the state, the user, okay, it has a token. We are not sending the token actually, so we need to send the token. So let's change it. So here in our login we say, so const token. Okay, we await the token, and we say so actually res that JSON here. We need to send the user, so user and the token. The same is valid for here, const token. We send back here user token. Okay, because we need that that token. Now in our, something is going to change here. So in our user slice, so where it is, features user slice, so state that user equals payload that user, right? And here like this. And we need to have here state that token equals payload that token. So state that token equals payload that token to save the token. So let's make sure that we have the token, and we can remove this state by just going to our application, and we have this persist root saved in the local storage. We can just remove it. Okay, so log in again. So now let's check that we have actually our state. We have the token, we have the user. Okay, so we don't have the token. Yep, so we need to look at the token. Let's look at here the payload. To make sure we are getting the token. So again, we'll go to our application, remove this, refresh. So console log, we have the user, but we don't have the token. So let's see. Yeah, because in the generate of token we are not returning the token, so here we should return the token. Back to our function, we return token. Okay, so make sure that you have this return token. And now we should have the token ready. So let's just go back to our application, remove this, refresh. Okay, ABC. Let's look at the console. Yeah, so this is what I wanted, because we need this token every time we make another request. We won't send the user, but we'll send the token to the database. Okay, so we need that. Okay, so save. Let's look at our Redux state now, and we have the token. Okay, if we refresh, we should still have the token. So state, okay, so we have it, it's fine. Let's remove this console log, and now we are going to set up the app API to grab that token and send it every time. So what do we do here? In our base URL, after our base URL here inside the base query, we can add here a header, right? Because we'll send it with our header. So prepare header. Let's add a comma here. So prepare headers. Okay, so it takes headers here, and a get state. Actually, let's wrap this in parentheses. Okay, so we can get the state because the state has our token, so we'll grab it there, and we say const token equals, right, we get the state, that user, that token. So if there is a token, what do we do here? So we say headers. So say headers, should be headers. That set. So authorization, make sure you write it correctly, and it's going to be bearer space. Okay, so let's add backticks here and have make sure you add a space between the bearer and the token, like this. So headers, that's set. These headers, authorization, we send a bearer with the token, and this is going to be received here in the auth, right? So it's going to decode this and remove the bearer to just grab the authorization, which is our token. Okay, and then we'll just return our headers below. Okay, so now we have it ready. So if the token, okay, so let's make sure that this is fine. So we have the prepare headers. So prepare headers. Just a second, guys. Okay, so we have our headers. We get the state. Okay. So this should actually wrap it here and remove this. Like this. See. So get state. Yeah, so we have the headers, okay, the parentheses. We have the get state. Okay, these are the parameters, so the parentheses should stop here. Then we have here the curly braces, okay, for our function, the function body. Alright, so now we have it. Let's see if it's sent actually. So if I want to log out, okay, I go here to my navigation. So navigation, and this button here, okay, let's add it. Let's add here on click, and we'll have a handle logout. You can have a function here, call it handle logout. And this handle logout, what it does is, first of all, we import, so const equals use logout. Okay, we didn't add it to the app API. Let's add it to the app API here. So we say in our app API, we add it here first. So use logout user mutation, and in our navigation, we can just look at import it here. So const equals use logout user mutation, and we'll have now logout user, and say is loading. Okay, so that's it. So we can call this logout user, and that's then when we after that, if we have an error, okay, so it has an error object, and let's wrap it in parentheses. Now if, okay, we can say if there is no error, which means everything is fine, we can just say console log out. Okay, and the last thing is we go here in our slice, so the user slice, and we add a new builder, a new event listener. So builder add matcher, so the app API endpoints logout not login, logout user. So the match is fulfilled, what do we do here? So we need to remove, okay, we have access to the state, we don't need any payload. What do we do here? We say we remove delete, we delete the state that user, and we delete state.token. So it's as simple as that with the logout. Let's try it out now. So user slice line 21. Let's see, user slice. Line 21. Yeah, actually this. If we log out, right, so the logout is working. You'll see that if I refresh the page, there is no more user, okay, which is fine. So I can now log in to my account. I can log out, okay, and the state is persisted. For example, if I log into my account and I grab this link, open a new, let's say a new here link, I can just paste, and you still have, right, the user state. So this is because of the Redux persist, which is persisting the state in the local storage. Okay, so that was it for this third part. This second video, and in the third part we are going to now just build, okay, the actual pages to create articles, read articles, update them or remove them. All right.